can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to episode 3 of our Mint Perspective at MediaMint. This is a thought leadership initiative from MediaMint, as I mentioned, that we do. I'm Nisha Sharma, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Partnerships here at MediaMint. In today's webinar, we're going to be talking about conversion rate optimization, or CRO, as it's commonly called. We'll talk about the trends that are shaping in CRO in 2025, and we'll also dive into how the industry's best practices, best publishers, and brands are fixing their conversion funnels. We invite you to keep this conversation active, so feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and we'll try to cover them. Now, I'm not an expert in CRO, but I'm excited to be joined by someone who is. Jan Marks is Director of Europe and Latin America at VWO. Thanks for joining me, Jan. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Nisha. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. Thanks for all the many meetings of preparing this wonderful conversation. I'm really very happy to be here. Yeah, telling me about myself, I always point out that I still don't get it that out of 100 people who visit a website, 99 of them or 98 or 97 of them walk away without doing what we hope they would do. And I think it's just not acceptable. So I still feel that there's so many things to be changed, to be improved. And yeah, this is what keeps me awake at night sometimes, not always. But it has become part of my passion to make digital better.
Wonderful. And really what we're trying to do with CRO is just get people, like you said, to take action, to do what it is that we're doing. And for publishers and retail brands, as we're talking about today, what we're looking for is what? What are publishers aiming to do?
Well, on the publisher side, what caught my attention when we started looking deeper into the business of news and media companies, we noticed that most of them, they're really taking the second step before they're taking the first step. So the whole optimization efforts and most optimization programs, they start with the subscription optimization. So trying to convert more readers into subscribers. What we see now is there's a certain, let's say, a phenomenon that publishers are taking more attention, paying more attention to the first step, that is converting a visitor into a reader or into a loyal reader, into a repetitive reader, and so on. So reader's delight is probably getting much more attention nowadays, which is good, actually.
Yeah. And so let me just take a step back here. So CRO isn't new. It's been around for a while, right? And VWO itself has been around for 15 years, as has MediaMint. Obviously, the capabilities have evolved as web and mobile technologies, as well as marketing trends and capabilities have evolved over the years, right? So where are we today? And from your experience, what are the trends that you're seeing in CRO right now?
Well, I would say there are 3 main trends that are more and more obvious, and most experts in the CRO community or optimization community agree on that. Finally, we see the uprise of experimentation culture, which means is, whereas in the past, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the vast majority of optimization programs, they were somehow based in the corner of UX. So there was a small team or a one person which was actually running a couple of A/B tests for a specific purpose and so on. And sometimes I really felt pity for these guys because they didn't have the support of the top management. They didn't have the support of the online marketers. The product management wasn't quite aware that what the guy who's doing the testing thing, what is he actually doing? So these times are over. I think we see a shift that this thing has moved from UX UI people to product managers and product owners. And this shift is very often, luckily, orchestrated by the top manager. So altogether, this is was always the underlying condition to build an experimentation culture, which we have seen since quite some years in some countries, like the Netherlands, for instance, very different compared to any other country. And now it has arrived at most major markets as well. So there is a big trend with regards to that. The second one is needless to quote. The AI is changing everything. There's a lot of activism and actionism. It's so everybody's jumping on top of it, both technology providers and clients, companies. I think nobody has a true idea what's going to happen tomorrow. So we started discussing this. Well, we were lucky. We had a very clear vision about it since 2 or 3 years and invested quite early on in this particular field. But the speed of change is still surprising. So we see that. What does that do to our optimization activities? Also with partners like MediaMint, it accelerates the game. I would say if I would have to summarize this in one word, is acceleration. So there's so many new possibilities that you can do way more things in much shorter time. So people who really engage and embrace the possibilities there, they optimize faster, broader, and everywhere, which is kind of in line with the experimentation culture. So that is the second big shift. And the third one I would say is I hardly meet clients which are uh, when they speak about conversion optimization, still speak about A/B testing only, right? So in the past, there was a lot of people where conversion rate optimization was equals testing experimentation, and now there's way more analysis. There's way more strategizing towards effective actual personalization. So I think the definition has become broader and more holistic, and not only just A/B testing. I think these would be the three changes that we see nowadays.
Yeah, no, and I personally am excited about the culture of experimentation, right? And I I feel that that's what leads to innovation as well, right? And having that I think is incredibly important. So I think that's very
And
exciting.
there's still a way to
Yeah,
go. There's still a way to go. If
yeah,
you look at sometimes if you look in very advanced into the organization of very advanced players, um, you, and you see how experimentation was gamified and it really sank into all areas, right? To give you an idea, we ran a study in Europe, which was called the State of Conversion Rate Optimization. It was about 2 years ago. And we found out that across Europe, average number of experiments at companies was around 3, right? So it was quite homogeneous, the result, except one country, and I also already mentioned it, the Netherlands, there was 17. So how is that possible, really? And this really caught our attention, and we really dove much deeper into it and had many conversations, talked to customers. We have a lot of customers in the Netherlands, and yeah, they were quite pragmatic in it. They really democratized optimization inside the organization. So the head of human resources was experimenting with the career page. The head of customer service was experimenting with the FAQ page, and so on and so forth. So there were many other areas. There was I remember a fashion label where a very creative guy who was heading the digital assets part of it, so all photographies and this part of the website's content. And they were experimenting with photos. There was not a single photo that went online, which wasn't tested again to others. So this very ambitious and holistic approach, this is something that not all players have already acquired the way to do it.
yeah, yeah. And just on that, so as organization, like not every company has that culture of innovation yet, right? Sorry, experimentation. So what have you seen that helps to drive that? What needs to be, what in the companies that you looked at when you talked to them, like what did you find that was driving that culture of experimentation?
Uh, well, I think it depends on the starting point. It depends very much where you start from. So if we find a scenario that a new client, we actually see the phenomenon of the lonesome wolf, right? The CRO person. Then we try to find allies, so friends who could be interested in joining the effort. So building a team. I think this cross-functional, so getting CRO out of a silo is the very first step, and find some allies and uh, find some other stakeholders that could be interested. And the very natural step is to discuss to involve the IT guys and the online marketers and so on and so forth. But the best case would be, and that has become a common practice at our end, that once that before we start building a roadmap of experiments and so on, we talk about we take two steps back and invite the top management to the kickoff meeting, really to align on expectations, really to understand the approach of business optimization. We always talk about conversion optimization. At the end of the day, it's one piece of business optimization. So understand the priorities and also at this early point share, let's say, not all C-level people know about what the CRO people in their own organization are doing. They don't know about the possibilities that they have there. And very often when first they come on board and they think this is just the meet and greet, but it isn't. And then we see and really take some co-ownership in it, and that's amazing. So once that you really have the sponsorship at the top level and you have really productive quarterly business reviews with these guys, then you will see automatically how the buy-in from many other people is actually happening and the opposition is not so loud.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. It really does start by having that sponsorship at the top, and then, bringing that down to the rest of the organization and tying it to your business goals, right? Because that's ultimately what we're all trying to achieve together.
and
And if
and,
you
and
show how
I'm
that
not saying,
happens, then
yeah.
yeah.
No, I'm not saying this because I'm here with you, but I think
No,
a secure recipe, especially at the beginning, is to team up with an agency that knows how to really break down this silo and have get the broader picture and so on and so forth. So when I ask a new client, do you have any agency that is actually involved in your CRO efforts and so on? Sometimes I hear something like, no, we prefer not to outsource CRO. It's part of well, I think it's a very good step if you are not so mature in this field to actually team up with an agency that helps you shorten the learning curve and break down walls and build alliances within the company and also get the attention of the top management. So that's a quite hands-on approach if you have the
yeah,
budget for
it's
it.
it's it's a partnership. It's an integrated team, right? That does that. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's bring this back to our publishers and retail brands. So we talked about some of those trends, but specifically for publishers and for retail and in e-commerce brands, what are you seeing is happening there? And what's different between, for publishers and for retailers? What are you seeing there?
Um, well, I see that I already mentioned it that the there's a certain trend that they pay more attention. Publishers pay more attention to the reader's delight, reader experience optimization, and things like that. So that being said, it's kind of the result of seeing how hard it is really to build up a larger database of subscribers, a larger customer base with subscribers. So reader revenue optimization, they tackled this initially, and now they see that there's a number of things that you need to get right before you can push people into a subscription funnel and play around with all kinds of subscription models and so on. Well, this being said, then you get into the field of user experience slash reader experience. So here, that's the big part where retail and well, retail, manufacturers, even NGOs. So where every company or organization that runs a serious digital channel has to deal with engagement and delight. So let's face it. The other day, somebody asked me about what still annoys me most in this particular field. And so I really don't like digital experiences. I don't like them. I like there's so many things that really drive me crazy. Whether it's whether when it's an online banking, or it is when I go shopping, or when I try to find some information and so on. So there's so many things in this particular. So talking about reader engagement or user engagement, creating some you're tapping right into psychology and the user's mindset, so to say. So I wouldn't call it that you start manipulating people. It is just you need to learn listening. First of all, and this is something that applies to retailers and publishers equally. Learn to listen. Learn to listen in a way of understand, where did he come from? Why? What is he expecting? And so on and so forth. So it all starts with the arrival experience on your side and so on and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of user behavior analysis that is really, really interesting. And that is where I would say publishers learn a lot from a lot of best practices that they see in the retail field, simply because there was more research going on there. I think, and if you look into the organizations of news and media companies, you very often find people who learned a lot about this particular matter as well, and on the commercial side of business. So creating user delight is not easy, but it's possible if you learn how to listen and how to actually systematically narrow down the many issues that you might see, and narrow this down to the ones that matter most, and would enable you to carefully move people towards a potential subscription there. So that's I would say this is the most common, or the biggest overlap of these two parts.
Yeah. And to that point, it's understanding behaviors, but this is also where the personalization comes in, right? Is understanding your different users and how to tailor the experience to different types of readers or different, right? Like, I mean, and it could vary just based on where in the world they're coming in from. It could maybe perhaps their age, it could be, various characteristics, right? That would drive, and you have to be able to tailor that experience accordingly, right? It's not just a one size fits all type
Yeah,
of engagement, right?
I mean, this is it's kind of whenever we talk about personalizing user experience, it's kind of pathetic, because the first book about this subject was published in, I think, in 95, if I'm not wrong. I think, well, long time ago, long time ago. So that's one thing. And the other part is, if you really browse some websites of leading brands, and you really uh, try to find a personalized matter. I mean, you take an airline, right? You pick it, and you just have two sessions. One in the morning, where you actually leave some traces and indicate who you are, what you want. Short trip to London, whatever. So you navigate a bit, then you close your browser and come back 3 hours later. It's so frustrating that to see that you have to say everything again. Nobody listened to you. You are still getting a lot of offers which are completely irrelevant for you, and so on and so forth. Or in the same session, sometimes, well, if you go on a 1 day trip, do you really need a taxi or a rent a car in London? Do you really need some extra luggage there if you are back to back one day? No, you don't. So I think there's so many challenges. And look in the organization. Is there some kind of head of personalization? No, there isn't. So it's still a challenge organizationally and so on. And apart from some big players like Amazon or Booking.com, not too many companies get it right.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just looking here. We have a question from one of our attendees around suggestions, really, for conversion rate methods, particularly for this is a company that is a beauty brand essentially, and they're asking about what are some good suggestions, what are some methods that you've seen companies take in preparation for an event like a Black Friday sale or something like that. What any guidance for them?
Well, that's a big question.
Pretty broad
So,
question, but maybe
yeah, pretty
some
broad
tips.
question. So, okay, I mean, I would say this gets us deep into the uh, definition of what are you actually selling? Are you selling creams or oils and so on, or are you selling a dream? So I think the first thing I've been in many uh, CRO projects which were kind of heading into the right and into the wrong direction because we were working on UI, UX, and so on. Whereas the real optimization was to understand what is the user actually looking for, and he's not looking for a cream. He's looking for the impact of a cream you and your life in a certain way. I mean, if you talk to branding experts in this field, they are very often, unfortunately, totally disconnected to the CRO efforts. And I feel that first of all would be take two steps back, think about if you know your audience very well, think about it, and think about the expectation and what your actually product can deliver, and then play this particular strength and speak to the heart and soul of your customers, and not only the price of Black Friday. So keep this in mind. It's a lot about optimization, it's a lot about psychology, I would say. And then some of the most effective experiments that I've seen are really smart psychological support of the user experience towards a particular product. Now, with regards to Black Friday, since you mentioned it, um, well, speed is everything. We are on August 13th now. Black Friday is around the corner. People say, well, I started saying this in June normally, because before you get ready and you understand what happened last year, Black Friday, I mean, there are so many things you could have learned from. You could have looked at where did people actually drop off, which were the claims and so on that worked best. One simple advice I could give that stood out in so many projects. If you are shortly before or around Black Friday, so everybody who is, or not everybody, but most of the people who come to your website are actually price sensitive. So they come because they are deal hunters, so to say, within a reason. And very often this hope to find an extraordinary deal or a unique pricing there, it dies on the product detail page. So the online marketeers spend a fortune on standing out in the market around Black Friday. That having spent a fortune, they bring people to the website to a landing page, which is still pretty reasonable Black Friday link. And from there, the next click gets the user to a category page or a product detail page. And that's where the price subject dies. It disappears, it vanishes. And from that moment onwards, you only start talking about the ingredients of your cream or your oil and what it does and so on. But you no longer speak to the deal hunter there. So around a very special deal is, we always call it experiment with keeping the message alive. It's very easy. You just take the key messages like best price guarantees, or like X% off, or only until, or whatsoever. So, and position visuals around it along the entire journey down to the checkout page. And this created a big difference, I can tell you. Well, besides landing
Great
page
advice.
optimization, but landing page optimization is being practiced in most brands. But keeping the message alive along the journey is something that not everybody has in mind.
That is great advice, and it's a fascinating area to explore too. Like you said, the psychology behind all this. So thank you for that. And again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat there. So Jan, I want to switch gears just a little bit and kind of get back to the AI topic again, right? It's like you can't have a conversation these days without talking about AI. But when it comes to this space, I find that AI and tools like ChatGPT or the Google search summary, right, the AI summaries and those things, they've really been changing the way that we search for information and how we access websites or articles or whatever is referenced in those results. So now we're seeing that people are coming to our websites with different intents, right? And so how is this affecting our website experiences and CRO? What's changing?
Everything, you could say. Well, first of all, what I already said is, since you have so many possibilities, things are getting, the optimization game is getting faster and faster. So you can actually try out many more variants. It takes you much less to really build an A/B test. It's pretty easy. You can do this in a fraction of the time that was required not too long ago. That's one thing. But you also have certain things or we see certain things that we have to keep in mind. Most users, which are frequently navigating all kinds of shopping sites or media sites and so on, they see some kind of an inflation of content. Because there's just more content out there, because it's so easy to create it. So you could easily create a new website or a new chapter or a new blog entry using a couple of smart agents, right? So, but us, the user, is still a human being, and we can only digest to a certain degree. So if there's more and more content and more details and so on, we see that that there is just too much to digest. So my advice with regards to that is use AI to reduce your product description or your articles to the essence of it, right? Because we are all running out of time, unfortunately, and we do have to deal with, not with 20 emails a day, but with 200 emails a day. And I think optimization is the art of reduction also. So to really fight this inflation of artificially generated content in a certain way. So that's one thing. In the publisher field, we see really an interesting motion where the serious news publishers really suddenly, in this mix of hardly to control many channels and news sources, to stand out with authentic, reliable information. So that has become a value in itself. And this is this is something that only recently most news companies really discovered, to really point this out, that there is a certain truth in it, that actually is authentic human generated content behind it. Well, AI in the field, when you are running a digital channel, my honest recommendation would be, whenever you buy a technology platform, not only a CRO or testing platform like ours, uh, have a deeper conversation around it, how your technology provider is using it. So what are the practical applications of AI baked into this platform, right? So, and whenever somebody says, well, we are working on it, well, then this should be a pretty red flag, right? So let them show you what exactly, how can you, would this particular technology platform already leverage AI in a very practical way in this way. I remember when all this started 2 or 3 years ago, we had a meeting with the entire company, with everybody. Our CEO invited us pretty spontaneously, and to discuss what AI actually means for us, right? And how should we deal with it? And what I remember from this meeting was that he really openly, well, he confirmed what I just said, that it's hard to forecast where are we getting with all this. But the only thing that you can actually do that he's expecting, and that all managers in our company are expected to say, is curiosity. So if you want to deal with it in a certain way, and you're running a company or you're part of a company, be curious, try out things, try it out every day. It's fun and it helps you a lot, and you feel much less insecure because you don't have to understand everything what's going on there, but there are wonderful things. One more thing I would point out, that really in our business, in the optimization game, that really became a game changer. We always had two main playgrounds in the optimization practice, which was A/B testing, and then qualitative user behavior analytics, which is, well, at VWO, it's VWO Insights with heat maps and session recordings and all this wonderful stuff that you can actually get to understand your users' behavior better. Now, the latter, it was always there. We all know the beautiful heat maps that you see everywhere, and there are great tools out there. But this field has dramatically changed, because the dilemma was, until not too long ago, the dilemma was that you didn't have the time to understand all the session recordings, and to find the relevant sessions, and to find the relevant moments, and to detect the patterns that really tell you something about it. Nowadays, with co-pilots baked into this product, for instance, if you use VWO Insights, you actually have the possibility to digest thousands of session recordings and get it served on a silver plate. What's the conclusion? So what are the top 10 problems that you actually saw there? And this means, before you start experimenting, you are already much better informed to think about, okay, what should be the real problems that you need to address, right? So because the analysis has become much smarter in this field.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch as the space evolves with the impact of AI and how that's being integrated. So, and it ties back to the, like you said, be curious, but it ties back to that culture of experimentation, right? Be curious,
Yeah.
experiment, try things, right? That's what it's about. So, all right. So going on to our next question area here. So, with regards to experimentation, right? So, I think generally we're seeing that subscriber growth is tough these days. Ad revenue is declining these days, right? So, what are some things from an experimentation standpoint? What does good look like, right? When you're trying to achieve these goals, and and perhaps on the contrary, where do these current methodologies kind of fall short? Where are you seeing that, we run into challenges, but, what would you say there?
Well, well, I think it's that there are many possibilities, and so first of all, they are aware about all, let's say, the challenges in the business. We're talking about the publisher's business, right? Specifically. So they've gone through a never-ending digital transformation from paper to digital, and now from advertisement-based revenue to reader revenue. My goodness. I mean, seriously, I'm really amazed that these companies are still there. They're survivors. Uh, Big kudo to them. They've done an amazing job there. Now, since there are so many things that you can do, the worst thing I think that you could do is stumble into an optimization game. So I think it's really important to come up with some kind of a plan, some kind of a framework. You need to build yourself a framework so that you build yourself some guidance, um, uh, starting from understanding where you are actually, but create some guidance to how to address which particular fields uh, in your product strategy. This being said, um, the it's as I said, it has become a native part of the product strategy and of the product management, the experimentation piece. And as such, um, I strongly advise customers to when they contract us, to double check together with us if there is such a framework, right? As opposed to let's test this, let's test that. Should we just test this? This is nice. I mean, without killing this spontaneous, creative experimentation attitude. But you need some kind of a framework, and you need, because otherwise you also can't set any goals for what you're doing there, right? Um, Sometimes it's not that you shouldn't overdo it with just creating and strategizing and setting a nice plan and so on. No, I mean these times are over as well. You need to have an agile organization around it, but still, I think it's very, very important that you understand your biggest challenges there, where you actually stand, that you team up with some of the leading technology providers, I would say. So, because there's a lot of know-how that with whatever the application is, but uh, there's a lot of know-how baked into the product. And if you have a technology provider, challenge him. He can help you a lot in setting this framework for optimization in a certain way. It's uh, probably the least successful optimization programs that I've seen is stumble into A/B testing. Run a certain analysis, start with your Google Analytics data, then look into a couple of session recordings and heat maps, etc., and then take it from there, and then ideate with a broader team. Speaking about which is also something that matters a lot is before you get started, think about who should be part of your optimization initiative in your organization. So very often you forget about a lot of people who should be part of it and who should buy into it. It's very often when we demo our product, a potential customer comes to us, and before the meeting start, days or weeks before, we try to encourage people to say, so who else would be potentially in the future become a user of experimentation? And then we give some examples and so on. So trying to broaden this so that you have more support and a proper structure in your optimization team, and the right skills within it. It's not only about having more people, but having the necessary skill set uh,
Yeah.
in the team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would say is my honest recommendation.
Can you think of a recent client that you worked with where you said, they're doing a really good job, and you know, what was what were they able to achieve or accomplish from that?
Oh, wow. Well, I hope we have a number of very successful clients. We
I'm
actually
sure there are
do
many,
have.
but if you think of one, particularly
Uh,
maybe in a publisher space or an e-commerce space, so someone that jumps out to you, or you don't have to name names, but just in terms of, what they did, what they were able to achieve from that.
yeah, we're working with a large media group. and I won't tell you the country because I don't want to get into the specifics. But what I really saw there was that they managed to bridge the gap between the commercial subscription people on one hand and the newsroom, the journalists. So that was a complete game changer pretty much early on. So this means that it had a deep impact on the product, and it accelerated the experimentation game dramatically, because once they understood how easy it is to actually to test certain things out, it impacted their own way of dealing with news and media pieces. I would say that was something beyond our expectations that they got this, because it's one of the biggest challenges, that you have the commercial people on one side, and then you have the newsroom on the other side. But there's more and more nowadays. It has become more and more common that people are really bridging this, and our biggest clients, they do that quite successfully. I would say most impressive success stories we see whenever CRO is over communicated within the organization, so that other people buy in, the top management buys in, and by doing so they get faster and faster. But our account managers who are in charge for renewing contracts with existing customers, I'm always asking them, okay, where do you have less? Where is it most easy for you? And these are the customers, because they grow naturally, right? So they really want to continue with it, and so on. And there are a couple of them that do this quite successfully. I think early on, out of the UX UI perspective, they're more driven by user psychology and business goals, and then get this across the entire organization. That's what I feel. And also, I mean, we're all speaking about very, very mature, large organizations. I'm also always impressed by young companies that start from the scratch and start early on with optimization. That's also impressive how early on, because that's the time when they actually define the nature of their digital business. That is also quite impressive. There's one particular area, NGOs is also sometimes a very interesting field. They have learned a lot in the past, and we've been working with them since quite a while. Also very interesting, because this is partly media, this is partly publishing about what they do. It's a lot of content business, right? But it's also a commercial aspect, right? So they need members and donors and so on and so forth. Yeah, also interesting stories there.
Yeah.
Next time I'm going to bring one of them.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that. There's a couple of questions here around strategies around paywalls and cart abandonment. So now on the retail side, can you touch on that a little bit in terms of what are you seeing? What would be some of the recommendations or suggestions around dealing with paywalls and cart abandonment most recently?
Well, in the field of paywalls, the magic bullet, the dynamic paywalls, always showing the right paywall at the right moment to the right audience, and so on. I haven't seen the perfect state of that yet. I would say I've also heard at the subscription summit in Amsterdam a lot about keeping things simple, right? Very often, okay, there are millions of possibilities for your paywall, but many publishers, meanwhile, they learned that there are clearly some winners. There are some easy to digest approaches. So I think in paywall testing depends very much also on the media product, right? So if you have deep investigative journalism, or if you have just short news, short articles with less deep investigations. I think I mean, there are some leading paywall providers. We all know them, like Piano and Suffer and so on and so forth. And they encourage you to go and try out things. It's part the nature of the product and so on, which is okay. There has been one surprising game changer a couple of months ago, or no, a couple of years ago. Um, there is Google's new RRM, Reader Revenue Manager. So, in other words, the free of charge piano. Sorry, guys. It's not against piano. It is, but it's a game changer. Actually, there are a number of companies which are testing this at this moment. Technically, it's quite impressive what you can do with such a free tool, but of course you have to be aware that you are sharing a lot of information with Google in this particular moment, and you not know exactly where this leads you. But it is something we try to, as an experimentation technology provider, we try to integrate as good as possible with paywall providers. We think we are really good at building and delivering experiments and facilitating the possibility to run them. So rather than building testing capabilities inside the platform, I always recommend team up with us guys. We really can do a lot of, let's say, once the paywall is defined and the management of all the commercials around it, it's so easy to actually use a platform that is actually focused on experimentation to deploy different models under different circumstances. So
Yeah.
that's there. On the in the retail side, so many things. It's hard to say what stands out. I would what I would like to know what's going to happen now with AI and with Google's recent efforts to get rid of the basket. So where the shopping actually entirely happens on Google. That's to be seen. Right now, what I see, if I look across all our clients, there's still so many things that can be improved and made easier. I think I still see too many people looking at desktop versions of their websites and online shops. Have a look at it. I mean, I'm having hundreds of meetings with online shopping, with online shops or owners of online shops, and whenever they show a particular problem or idea or something on their website, what are we looking at? We're sitting both on at our notebook and looking at the desktop notebook version of their website. I hardly ever find someone that says, "Let's have a look at it. I want to show you something, Jan." And then we look at the mobile version of it. I mean, it sounds strange, but it's still there. It is still there.
Yeah.
And so I say, guys, think again about your online shops for mobile device users, because they make 70% of your traffic, and there's enough stuff to be done. So let's address it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, as someone who comes from a mobile background, I mean, it's definitely a passion area for me in terms of that mobile experience. But okay, so I've got one more question. I know we could go on for hours and hours, but I want to touch on the data piece of this, right? So there is so much data that is collected from the platform and from all the user behavior data, the experience data, right? I mean, there's so much information, and for CRO, that we use that data to understand the friction points so that you can optimize those website experiences, right? And provide a better engagement. But there's so much more that you can do with that data, right? And I'm talking about the integration of that data with other systems that you may use, right? So as an example, when I think about the marketing services that MediaMint provides, right? Everything from campaign planning to audience creation to the and segmentation to the activation and the reporting and all of this stuff, right? That data, that experience data that's coming from the web or from mobile, that can really enrich the customer profile information that an organization starts to build, right? So I know that VWO, for example, has several integrations with CDP or customer data platforms, right, or other systems, data warehouses, right, that where this data is sitting about customers. And I don't know, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but how often are people using this CRO data to enrich that customer data such that when you then go and market towards those your customers, you have that information to inform and to better target or guide, right, those experiences, and then feeding that data back into the web experience, so because you know who that customer is and be able to tailor. So there's a really nice experience journey, not just on the web, but throughout the customer journey in, in your organization. What are you seeing there? I mean, are you seeing first that companies are really integrating this, and or are we still some ways to go here?
Well, I mean, since we have seen the initial data warehouses decades ago, we've been also discussing the need for data being more data driven and having more data. And this was always confused, but having more data is getting us to a data driven organization where we really, where most company mm, failed in really creating a data driven business was actioning things out. So actually extracting some practical value that I, as a user or as a customer, would actually appreciate, right? So again, let me take the example of an airline again. Why, for Christ's sake, do I always have to tell the airline, which I fly with 2 times a month, that I like to sit on an aisle seat? I don't get it. I mean, honestly, how is that possible? That I have to say I want to be in the first 10 rows and on an aisle seat. So if this is not in my data profile, I mean, seriously. And so what I mean is, what I've seen is sometimes that there are really hands-on personalization that actually make things much, much easier. I'll give you a good example. Fashion brands, but finally they understood that once and forever you have to detect whether it's a man or it's a woman that's actually visiting your online shop, right? That helps a lot because it excludes 50% of the non-relevant stuff, right? And you focus on the stuff that is actually for potentially for you. So there are a lot of things that are less related to having the data or structuring the data, but of actioning things out and actually baking them into what is into your shopping experience at a certain point. Well, there are some. It's needless to say that recommendation engines have made big progress. So you see more and more stuff that is coming up, and so on. But not everywhere. It depends. It depends a lot. Um, in the retail business, we've learned from this recommendation engine. In the news and media business, not so much, except that, I mean, we see this. I had an interesting conversation about with the chief product officer newspaper the other day, and he was pointing out that their problem is that they don't want to create a bubble of personalized information. So based on the data record, they know perfectly that this is a guy who always reads the financial pages and a bit of foreign policies. They don't want to annoy him with sports, culture, and so on. So what happens? At the end of the day, they found out that this over personalization created a poor product experience because sometimes they like to read about culture and sometimes they like to read about other stuff. So you have to enrich it and so on and break through the bubble and broaden the perspective for a reader. And this also applies a little bit in on retail. But your question was more focused on data. I think well, the best recommendation here is crawl, walk, run. Try to really filter out the most relevant data, aisle seat, right? Excuse me, and then bake this somewhere into your user experience. If you overdo it, not only it takes a lot of time and it's complicated and so on, it gets creepy, right? So you're so much
Mhm.
data, and not everybody likes everybody to have so much data about you. So I wouldn't like if the shop would greet me. By the way, how are your kids? Right? So what the heck? What does he know about my kids? Right? Why does this guy know that my son is now 29 years old? Right? You should know that. So creepiness is also something. But I think we have invested too much, generally speaking, in initiatives, or companies have invested too much in large data gathering, structuring, normalizing, and so on, and not enough on building really helpful, appreciated use cases of this data that really adds value and avoids that we have put in obsolete stuff and so on. I have, and you can see this also, the big data warehouse or CDP projects, which are overdone. They take too long, they are too expensive, and so on. So nowadays, thank God, there are now initiatives which are getting more and more affordable, and also thanks to AI, the hidden treasures inside the data that you have, they can be made available, right? You find your really relevant segments much, much easier than before. So I'm really curious about it. Maybe it's the AI that helps us finally to make better use of the many data that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's no shortage of data. So, well, Jan, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and it's a fascinating space, and you've got so much insight. And as I said, we could talk for hours on this topic.
Yeah, true.
But thank you again, and thank you to our attendees for joining us today. I hope the session was informative for you. MediaMint and VWO, we are partners together, and we are helping our clients with their CRO journeys. So MediaMint provides the managed CRO services on the VWO platform, and we'd love to continue the conversation with you. So please feel free to connect with Jan and I on LinkedIn. We will be sending out a follow-up email with additional information for you as well. So thank you again. Thank you, Jan, and have a great day, everyone.